All right. I'm getting a lot of feedback on the Twitters and the YouTubes about my views on this new Black Panther woman empowerment vehicle. So I decided to delve a little deeper into this to try and explain my point. So somebody asked me, why do you have a problem with female heroes? You don't think women can be strong? And since I don't have the patience to type out such a long response, I decided to do it in video format. So, do I have a problem with female heroes? Not at all. I grew up as a comic book fan and I've loved many different female heroes. Hell, I've loved female heroes from different genres. From Eowyn from The Lord of the Rings to Princess Leia from Star Wars to Rogue, Storm, and Psylocke from the X-Men to Chun-Li from Street Fighter and many more. I actually spent money to see the Captain Marvel film because I grew up loving that character and I didn't know that the movie was going to be a big pile of horseshit. And one of my most vivid memories was watching the movie Red Sonja as a kid. So I have no problem with female heroes, and boys should interact with them the same way that I did growing up. But the issue I have now is this. There are too many films and TV shows that focus on female heroes while minimizing or ignoring male heroes. And women are happy about this because they've been told that men are toxic animals and that women should focus on being able to take care of themselves despite the men. So women have jumped on board this train and are all behind this movement that shows women as these badass powerhouses who can do it all on their own despite the men. And the men have been relegated to background characters or villains. And this is a very big problem. If you look at old action cartoons or comic books or video games or anything that targeted young boys, you'd see a pattern. The male is the one out there risking his life to save the damsel in distress. Now, women have come to see this as a negative thing, which is unfortunate, because what these old cartoons and comic books and video games and movies were doing is actually training and conditioning our boys to be the providers and protectors of our girls. When I was little, old media, alongside the example that my dad provided, it conditioned me to intervene if I thought a girl was in trouble. It also conditioned me to think of women as weaker than me. And while some people may see that as bad, and those people would be stupid, it's not a bad thing for a boy to think of a girl as weaker than him. And the reason for that is very simple. First off, women tend to be physically weaker than men, so teaching a boy about reality makes sense. But that's not the primary positive thing about that lesson. If I'm a male and I've been conditioned and trained to believe that the female is weaker than me, then I'm going to treat females a certain way. If I think a woman needs help, I'm going to jump in and offer to help her. If I see a woman in trouble, I'm going to intervene and try to help. And the lesson is really beneficial when it comes to relationships. If I'm a male and I've been conditioned and trained to believe that the female is weaker than me, then if I'm in a relationship and I genuinely love the woman, I'm going to bend over backwards to make sure that she's taken care of. If, in my mind, my girl is so fragile to me that I have to make sure that I'm doing everything to keep her secure, comfortable, and safe, I'm going to go above and beyond to ensure that she's taken care of and protected. These works of fiction are really supposed to function as training manuals for boys. Women always complain that chivalry is dead, but they seem to not realize who killed it. If you stop teaching boys that girls need their protection, and instead start teaching boys that girls can do everything on their own, then when I see a puddle, for example, why the fuck would I put my clean jacket down so a woman can walk on it? I've been taught that she doesn't need anything like that from me. Why would I waste my time opening the door for her? She's my equal in every single way. So why can't she open the damn door herself? Women don't seem to get it. The damsel in distress motif is really used to train males to take care of and care for their females. Don't you get it? Now, the damsel in distress is also a lesson to young girls, and it's a very important lesson. The lesson is this. When you grow up and you start looking for a man, make sure that you pick one who loves you so much that he's willing to sacrifice his life for you. Once again, if you look at the old cartoons as an example, you see that the male blindly throws himself into harm's way just to protect the woman. It's exhibiting a quality that women should be looking for in men. And that's what this is teaching girls. It's teaching them that they should only settle for a man who will do everything in his power to take care of you. In his mind, you should be his damsel in distress, and he should be spending his life working to care for you. That's the lesson. It's teaching a very important thing to both girls and boys. But for some reason, women are now disgusted with this idea. I wonder why. So now, since women are abandoning this way of thinking, their lives have been changed. Now women are told that they don't need to rely on a man and they can do it all on their own. And men are told women don't need them and they don't have to worry about caring for them. But there's just one problem. Babies. Men and women still want to have sex with each other. And when a man and a woman have sex, they tend to make babies. Babies require care, attention, time, energy, and most importantly, money. Normally, in ideal situations, the man thinks that his job is to take care of, protect, and provide for his woman. And the woman knew that the man she picks to impregnate her needs to be someone who wants to take care of her, protect her, and provide for her. And this was thanks in large part to that whole damsel in distress thing that we just discussed. So, while raising a child or children would still be hard, at least the man knew that his job was to be there to provide, and the woman was smart enough to pick a man who would do just that. But now, men have been taught that women don't need them in any way, and women have been taught that they don't need men around and they can do it all on their own. So, they wind up fucking and having a baby, and because the woman was taught that she doesn't need a man, she's no longer vetting the men she sleeps with to make sure she's picked the right one. And because the man was taught that women can do it all on their own, they don't need him and they don't need to be treasured, well, the man's just out there enjoying himself, fucking whoever opens her legs to him. So a lot of the issues that we have out there is due to us abandoning that damsel in distress motif. Now, why do women start to hate being seen as damsels in distress? Well, to be fair, there are a lot of legitimate reasons. One big reason is because that there were men out there who were taking advantage of women. And as a result, women felt the need to become more self-reliant. That is something that I do want to mention. I want to be very fair. There were women who attached themselves to men and the men turned out to be predators or immature children or serial cheaters. And so a lot of women decided that they didn't want to have to rely on men. That is something to remember. But that's not the main reason why so many women, practically all women now, have decided to abandon the damsel in distress role. The main reason is this: homosexual women needed help to gain their independence. Homosexual women don't want to have to rely on men, and they have a very good reason for that. They're homosexual. They don't really want to have anything to do with men. And so they needed to change certain rules and certain ways of thinking in this country in order to get access to certain rights and privileges that would allow them to live a life absent of men. Now, normally this wouldn't be a problem. I understand why they would want to do that. The problem I have is this: in order to get the numbers needed to fight for the rights that they wanted, they tricked heterosexual women into believing that all men were unreliable predators. Once they were able to get all the heterosexual women onto their side, they rallied, fought, and won certain rights. Now, it's great that they got access to rights, but now all of the heterosexual women were confused. You see, the homosexual women didn't have an issue now. They got all the rights and privileges that they wanted, and they didn't need to interact with men anymore outside of business. But heterosexual women were different. Sure, they had rights that they didn't have before, but now they were confused about roles within their heterosexual relationships. You see, when a homosexual woman enters into a relationship, she doesn't really have to worry about too much. If the relationship fails, she can wipe her hands, move on, and find someone else to be with. There are not strings attached in a homosexual relationship, but it's different for heterosexual women. If they get into a relationship with a man, there's a good chance that she'll get pregnant. Now, if their relationship fails, there are all kinds of strings attached. Let's quickly go over those strings. Homosexual women tend to be very successful in life. That's why the homosexual community is so wealthy, especially the white homosexual community. life tends to be easier for them because they don't have to worry about one very important thing. Homosexual women can't get each other pregnant. So they can have casual sexual relationships without worrying about too much. Even if a homosexual woman is in a very serious relationship, she can really focus a lot on work if she wants. She doesn't have to take breaks to worry about dealing with a pregnancy, or to worry about nursing a child, or raising a child, or dealing with a child getting sick. She can devote herself to her job. As a result, it's easier for her to move up and advance in a job, meaning that homosexual women tend to have access to more money than heterosexual women. Also, a homosexual woman doesn't have to worry about spending huge amounts of money to raise a child. She can save her extra money or invest it, meaning that she'll have access to more money than a heterosexual woman. Now, since they can't have unexpected babies in their relationships, homosexual women can leave one relationship and not have to worry about dealing with that partner again if they don't want. They don't have a child that's forcing them to be together. And remember all that money? A homosexual woman doesn't have to force herself to stay in a relationship because she needs help taking care of the child that her and her lover had. So she has more freedom and doesn't have to worry about money as much. Now, heterosexual women don't have that same freedom. If a heterosexual woman picks the wrong mate and gets pregnant, well, she may be in for some real trouble. If a heterosexual woman gets pregnant unexpectedly while in the middle of building her career, well, now she has a potential issue. Can she keep working the same way now while carrying a child? Will she have to take a substantial break after delivering her baby? Will her work suffer because she's now dealing with a new child? Also, now the baby costs money. You have to feed the baby, clothe the baby, pay the medical costs for the new baby. You have to buy toys, invest in college, modify your car and house for the new child. Things start getting real pricey. Now you have a problem. If you don't make enough money, then you now have to rely on the man for help. But what if you pick the wrong man to procreate with? Now you're kind of stuck with him. What if he abandons you? Now what? Now you have to find a way to make it work. Now you have to take care of a baby and work hard enough to cover both your salary and the money that the father made. Damn, this is getting tough. Even if you get everything balanced and now want to go out and get into another meaningful relationship, you're going to have an issue. Most decent, good men would rather pick a woman without a child than a woman who already has a kid with someone else. So now you've narrowed your choices. This is something women start to figure out as they get older, and it's too late. You've allowed homosexual women to trick you into thinking that you don't need to be selective when finding a man. You've allowed homosexual women to trick you into thinking that men shouldn't view you as a damsel in distress. And this was all done because homosexual women needed you to help them get into a better position in life. Homosexual women didn't care about what you needed as a heterosexual woman. So that's my real problem with this huge influx of female superheroes and the lack of male superheroes. It's setting up a dynamic that will be detrimental to both our boys and our girls. Boys need to see themselves as the protectors for a reason. All real heterosexual men know that women aren't inferior to them. The ones that think that aren't real men, or they're not heterosexual men. We all know the power that women have because our lives revolve around you, and we know that you're powerful enough to control us, and we know how important you are to us and to society. Even the men that don't want to admit it know that most of the things we do are to please and impress women. But in the type of society that we have, you need boys to think of girls as weaker than them because that makes them want to put you first. And as a heterosexual woman, you should want to be with a man who was raised thinking that he needs to put you first before himself or anyone else. And the fact is this: if you want to ignore reality, do so at your own peril. I don't. And in reality, women are physically weaker than men. But physical strength isn't the only kind of strength. Homosexual women need to take on the attributes of men because they don't plan on having one around them. So they need to adopt the more masculine traits in order to exist in this world. Heterosexual women don't need to worry about that. So you don't need to be manly. Physical strength is our thing, not yours. As a woman, embrace your strengths. Focus on the things that you're better at than us males. Men and women fit together in a certain way because each of us have strengths and weaknesses that the other doesn't, and those differences complement each other. If you keep trying to take on our attributes and keep encouraging men to take on your attributes, then life as a heterosexual woman will not be as pleasant as it can be. If you want to be a wife and a mother, then you need to find a man who thinks of you as a treasure that he needs to protect. And you need to be the woman who makes him feel like the man that can protect you. If you do that, I promise that life will be easier than if you try entering the dating scene acting like you're a man and asking that your man be more feminine. So while I love female heroes, and while I know that they're needed and very important, the male hero saving the damsel in distress is a vital lesson, and what it teaches to our children is way more important than making films that stroke the ego of stupid adults who don't really know what's going on.
Our leadership over there has been so welcoming to like my like not at all secret gay agenda, and so like I feel like I'm just like I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness to like if you see anything queer in the show, I'm proud of them. But like I just was like, no one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop me.
Stop letting homosexuals influence how heterosexuals live, because our realities are very different.